Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the Straight No Chaser podcast, where we talk about human freedom through money, technology, philosophy, and economics. This is the next episode of the Bitcoin Roundup, so it's all things Bitcoin related. This month we are joined by Andre. Welcome to the pod, Andre. Awesome to have you on board. We talk about Bitcoin strategic reserve companies. This bear market seems to be pretty hard on those guys. Many of them are starting to sell off their Bitcoin. One has actually just sold everything and shut its doors and walked away from this idea. Even Jack Mallers has stepped down from, I think it's 21 Capital was the name of the company that he was behind, and he is now just dealing with Strike directly. He seems to have moved completely away from this corporatization of the Bitcoin world. So interesting stuff there. And then we also talk about the BIP 110. It activated, it activated, and then it sort of didn't really progress beyond that. So a bit of a chat about that as well. Plus some other small tidbits of things that happen in the Bitcoin space. So great to have a full house. Once again, welcome to Andre for joining us. Awesome to have you, buddy. And anyway, great chat. I know you guys will enjoy it. Cheers. Cool. Awesome. Good morning and welcome, everybody. Full house in today. Andre, nice to have you jumping on board, slotting in for Oaken. He will be sorely missed, but you are most warmly welcomed. So nice to have you here. Where are you and what you're doing at the moment?
I'm in Stellenbosch, raising my kids and shitposting on X. Well, probably not shitposting, a little bit more sophisticated than that now. But we're still working on my startup RBTC, which we renamed to Hodl Stay. Hopefully going to launch that within this month now, after repeated extensions in our development process.
Building software sounds like construction, over budget, behind schedule. Generally, that's how it rolls.
Pulling teeth.
Yeah. Ham, on your side, where are you and what you up to, man?
I'm in Mossel Bay, dude. Same office I'm always in when I talk to you.
Ricky, for a guy in London, pinstripe, suit, tie, and clean shaven, you are certainly not. So what's happening there?
Yeah, I'm presently in London. Last time we spoke, I was in Bali, so I've been jet setting around. Let me tell you, it's hotter in London than what it was in Bali, which is a wild experience. The city is not built for the heat. It's crazy. You would think that an empire that dominated the whole world at one point in time would have figured out air conditioning, but they haven't. Yeah. So anyway, in London for the week, and then back up to Manchester next week. I might find a razor at some point along here, but I've been hanging out in Camden, so you got to fit in with the hipsters. You can't look too swanky or you get pickpocketed.
I hear London or the UK in general is not built for drought either. Somebody said a while ago that they, if it's 2 weeks of no rain, they actually have a serious water shortage because it pisses with rain permanently, and they've always got these low or shallow reservoirs everywhere, so they generally don't have a problem, but sort of turn the taps off for 2 weeks and they're in deep trouble. So I hope this isn't a problem for them now.
That's exactly the issue, man. And so London hasn't had a drop of rain in 2 months, which is crazy considering the beginning of the year they had 55 days of unbroken streak of rain. So it's crazy how this thing can happen. All the parks, if you've been to London, it's full of parks. They all are like dust bowls at the moment. It's just dust everywhere. No grass. So yeah, it's super, super dry. They've actually got water restrictions in place now. You're not allowed to water your garden. So they're having like day zero energy here. Yeah, it's very hot. But they should have built bigger dams, man. But I suppose when like you say, when it's raining all the time, why would you build big dams? But yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Well, I am in Pretoria. I was actually just saying to Andre before you guys jumped on that I'm the only guy that doesn't have a surfboard of the four of us. So I'm feeling a bit bleak about that. He was giving me some surfing tips as well. So hopefully one day I'll get out there with the biggest longboard you've ever seen and actually get up and look cool. I'll get a short surfboard though, the small one for the photos on the beach, and then I'll climb into the sea with a big one.
Dude, I just want to jump in there quickly and give you a small bit of advice. The irony of the situation is that you think you look cool with a small one, but you look like an absolute idiot in the water. So don't do that. Take a longboard, struggle to get down to the water, and then once you're in the water, you'll actually look all right.
And you actually have fun, because in a shortboard you're floating with just your neck sticking out. You won't catch any waves. You'll be like dragging yourself through the water like a drowning rat. You won't be able to get anything. So yeah, Handman's got good advice. I got to Bali with my shortboard that I got 6 years earlier, which I hadn't surfed really much. And then as soon as I paddled out, I was like, this is a bad idea. This board's way too small for me. So I immediately sold it and got myself an old man board, like a 6'6", 42 liter, which was the best move I ever made. And then I had him on my last day as I was leaving. I was surfing in Canggu and the tide had gone on quite a lot. And the reef was super shallow. Caught a wave in, and then I was paddling back out and I got caught on the inside of the set, and I just duck dived straight into the reef. It's like this deep, and took made a huge ding in my brand new expensive board. So I had to travel back home with a massive ding in my board. So that needs to be fixed still. Tail between my legs.
We'll be doing board repairs for Sat soon. We're getting there. We're close.
That's a great idea.
No, it's harder to set up than you imagine, though. Doing board repairs, nobody wants to do board repairs. It sucks.
Yeah, no one wants to do board repairs. No one wants to pay for board repairs. It's a massive grudge purchase, and probably illegal soon in South Africa too, right?
So I'm from Pretoria. That joke flew right over my head. Is that a surfing joke?
No, it's a Bitcoin joke.
Oh, right. The sex story. Yeah,
I'm trying to create a segue for the next segment.
Well, on that
board repairs is like cleaning a toilet. Nobody wants to do it. It's just...
So listen, okay, so you've segued off. So have at it. There have been new draft regs, crypto and Bitcoin related. I know you did a bit of a town hall last week. I was not able to join. I'm actually in the process of moving houses. I had a daughter overseas for a month, my youngest daughter. I had my eldest daughter married 2 weeks back, and we're busy moving a house at the moment as well. So things have been mull.
Is that because you had to sell your house to pay for the wedding?
Cheapest, dude. Don't even get me started. But I will confirm your daughter's wedding is better than your own wedding. I'll just say that. Herman asked me about that, which was the better one. I can tell you the daughter's one is way, way cooler.
That's a high bar. Man. I've got a daughter and I had a great wedding, so it's a high bar. I mean, I hope hers is better than mine, but it's a
Well, if you just pay, the pain goes away. That's what I was once told. So that's what I do now. But yeah, Ricky, you I think you actually hosted that little town hall chat, and the guy spoke about these new draft regs. So don't you want to just bring those of us up to speed, like myself, that wasn't able to attend that, and just talk through what's happening in the South African market at the moment?
Yeah, so that actually took a very interesting turn. The discussion, like I'm getting echo from someone. So essentially, there's new draft regulations that have been dropped. Oh, Andre, it's you that's echoing, bro. Can you mute yourself there? Gavin, are you able to mute Andre? Looks like Andre's just got on load shedding. Yeah, anyway, there, I think he's muted now. Yeah, so it's a quite interesting turn. So we had a Carl de Villiers join us to talk about the implication of the regs and like the letter of the regs that have been dropped. And everyone saw very early on in the discussion that this would be absolutely horrible for Bitcoin businesses, for anyone running a crypto related company in South Africa who's got who's been licensed, etc. And then Gareth Krobler from Layers Wallet brought up a very interesting point. And he was saying, these regs are the rules that they're trying to impose. And the issue is an ongoing court case with the previous round of regs that were dropped. And so the court case is going to appeal the Saab versus Square Matlangu case. So his point was that you can't make rules on something that is still being litigated. And so, in fact, what should happen here is that people should not engage with the rules at all, and you should attack the process. So don't go and try to argue your case about, oh, this rule, that rule is going to affect society or business this way, that way. Just be like, you can't do this. You have to follow process. Government has to follow process. And so therefore, we're going to attack the process, which I think is the best approach really to take. So I would encourage anyone watching this who's involved in the crypto space in South Africa, if you are concerned about the regs, that's the approach you should take. So join Property Rights Defense. It's propertyrightsdefense.org. We're getting a legal fund together. There's quite a few other interested parties who are also litigating this. You can send some Bitcoin our way, and we'll use it for funding the legal defense. And I think that's kind of the approach we're going to take here. Because as soon as you engage in the regulations, you're going to fight them on their terms. And what they're probably doing is setting a maximalist position, which is, asking for the most outrageous stuff. This is what Trump does all the time. And then they'll walk it back and actually get what they are after at the end of the day, because, you fight them on their terms. You fight in this outrageous position they've made, but really they have no intention of actually holding that position. They want to walk it back a bit and take those gains. But something that's clear as daylight to me as a tinfoil hatter, watching this was like, this just looks like it was written by the Reserve Bank and their member banks. This is the big banks trying to co-opt the industry, protect capital controls, protect their little money printer they got going on. So the real issue here at hand is like, why the hell does South Africa have capital controls? Ostensibly a free society. Why do we have capital controls? Mahendra could probably speak more about capital controls and the impact that has on your economy, etc., than I can. But it's a relic of colonial era. The laws were created in the 1930s when we were a British colony, and then they were extended in the 1960s when we were apartheid, and the apartheid state was running the show. And I thought the ANC was all about being against apartheid. I made a tweet about this last week. Like, they'll change every South African town name they can find, but when it comes to repealing apartheid era laws like exchange controls, they want to extend them. Tells you everything you need to know about them. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, just on the capital controls, it's basically a fence for your cattle so that they don't run away when you milk them too hard. That's it. So why would they take away that fence? That's just stupid. They, especially now with the talks of a tax revolt and stuff, they want as much capital to stay in the country because they know if they take it away, if no one wants to pay 75-80% tax, get nothing in return, so everyone will just take all the capital offshore. So unfortunately, that will be the last thing they consider.
Dude, have you coined that term yet? Capital controls is like a fence to keep the cattle inside when you milk them too hard. Like,
no, not yet. I just came up with that now, but it's, I think it's a good analogy for what's actually happening.
I'm gonna steal it if you don't use it.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly that, right? And like the big corporates in South Africa will just engage with the capital control frameworks, right? They govern by it, they'll engage with it, and they won't push back on it because that's like, they've already set up their machines to deal with capital controls. And this is the real problem we have, is the only people who are going to push back against capital controls is civil society. There's actual individuals who are like, hang on, stop the bus. Why the hell do we have capital controls in the first place? Why are we being milked like this? We're being sucked dry. 5% of the country pays the taxes for the country. We're being sucked dry from every single angle. And now they want to limit us even more, and you can't even have Alan Gray and Coronation and the big corporates come out and defend you on this point, because they kind of part of the machine and they're too scared to go against the state and have their licenses revoked, etc. So yeah, it's a bit of a rough situation, and the only way it changes is by regular individuals absolutely pushing back on this, because otherwise we're going to be booked until we dry.
Ricky, I just want to throw an idea out there because I thought about this while as you're speaking now. Doesn't it make sense then if you're going to tackle this and not engage with the actual laws, but you're going to engage with the process and fight them that way, doesn't it also make sense then to rather than fight the actual laws, alongside engaging with the process, to just work on launching a massive campaign to end all capital controls? Because that way you're actually like, what's the right term? I don't have clever words right now to describe it, but you kind of like pulling the rug out from underneath their feet in a way, because I mean this whole thing is built on the assumption that capital controls is a legitimate thing to have to begin with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the irony is that I just had a spam call coming in from the Democratic Alliance. Truecaller just picked it up. So that while we're talking about capital controls, the Democratic Alliance is trying to phone me and canvass for Lord knows. Whatever. I should have taken it and be like, what's your position on capital controls?
I want to ask you if you're fully vaxxed.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So no, Hadman, I totally agree with you. Like and we've seen the power that grassroots campaigns can have in South Africa. Like if you look at the e-tolls, OTA had that e-toll campaign. Another grassroots campaign that was extremely effective was this recent anti-immigration protest in South Africa. That was all grassroots organized, no big organizations, no unions. I mean, people might have got, like, organizations might have got involved further down the line, but like the government had nothing to do with it, and industry and companies had nothing to do with it. That was just people power. And government moved people around the world. Like I speak to people wherever I am now over the past few months, people are like, oh, what's happening with the immigration rights in South Africa? So like they've made big waves, and so that's what people can achieve when they set their mind to it. The problem is you're going against the banks, you're going against the reserve banks, you're going against the cabal here. Like this is in dangerous waters.
But we're doing that anyway, dude. Like Bitcoin, that's what it's all about. Like you've been doing that for years anyway. It's just coming.
Yes, but it's been a sly roundabout way, to quote Hayek.
Okay. And now it's head on.
Now they fight you part, and you have to put your head above the parapet, and you're fighting against the machine, and they will use all tools at their disposal. I mean, there was that former SA Reserve Bank governor who wrote the book about reserve banking. Was it Mitford Goddard? Is that his name?
Mm.
He wrote the book about reserve banking, exposing what it was, and then he was found mysteriously suicided. So, these things happen.
Oh,
so yeah, I can understand why people don't want to put their head above the parapet.
It's that we already won the previous battle, which ended in early 2024 against the shitcoins. So that was like the stage 2 boss, and now we're at the final boss, which is the central banks and commercial banks.
But Bitcoin is captured, haven't you heard?
Yeah, the suit coin hasn't got a control of Bitcoin.
So we've lost already, bro.
The one thing. Sorry, Andre, go for it.
No, I just wanted to say that's. Bitcoin is partially becoming more and more captured. That's part of their strategy against us. It's a battle.
Yeah, one of the things about grassroots revolt or resistance or civil disobedience, call it whatever you want to do, is it's one thing when it comes to withholding payment or withholding participation in something. The problem with the tax revolt is that for the average citizen in this country that's an employee, their taxes are deducted at PAYE level as you get paid off your payslip. There's no chance for the average citizen to withhold tax. The only thing you could probably do is withhold rates and taxes, and then you have to be prepared to be turned off water and power and all that, and you have to fight that. And then one day when you want to sell your property, they're going to ratchet all that stuff up, and you got to settle that first before the transfer goes through. And I think the banks is also a problem because everybody has to use banking. Now, us Bitcoiners, obviously, we're aware of ways around that, but the banks are reliant on the Reserve Bank because that's the lender of last resort. When the banks fail, the Reserve Bank will step in and prop them up. So they all support each other. And it's literally, like you say, Andre, this is like the final boss, I reckon, that we're facing here. So it is going to get ugly. But the harder they push, it's like anything, when you make an issue out of something, you raise the awareness of it more and more, and people start noticing, hey, there's this thing, I've heard about it 3-4 times, maybe the 5th time round, I should actually take a bit of notice or something. Anyway, just rambling from my side, no real question or comment there, just statements.
But I think this is why people have to be so careful and ever vigilant about the government constantly just closing the fence around you tighter and tighter, right? Because you wake up one day and you're like, oh shit, I can't actually do anything about this. Like, this is why people should be hyper vigilant about any new regulation or change the government makes. And the default answer should be no. Like, I feel like we should have a political party in South Africa whose role is explicitly to say no to every new bill or every new proposal for government to anything, and just gunk up the machine in Parliament. Whenever someone's like, oh, we need to, amendments to this bill, they should be like, default, no, not happening. We don't care. We haven't read it. No, it's not happening. Because if you don't, in 2026, if you assume that these people have your best interest at heart, like, you probably had about 17 vaccines by now. Yeah.
The other idea is sorry, Gavin. The other idea would be, I've been posting about that for the last 2 months, is every single law or bill or regulation has to have a cap of 5 or 10 years, and then it automatically lapses, and the bureaucrats who want to keep it going will have to reapply. And then you can, like you said, muddy the whole process up to such an extent that they just keep on trying to reinstate the previous laws that are lapsing, that they don't have time to waste. They don't have time left to create new ones, to think up new ways to regulate free humans. So that is a great idea to get part of the process, and to just make it more difficult for them to get all this stuff done.
It's called the Just Say No Party. Heard it here first. We'll have Nancy Reagan as our slogan, just say no.
So talking about us being, fighting the banks and the alternative method of doing things, self-custody is a big part of that. It's really hard to get people to self-custody. It's hard to get people to listen to the Bitcoin message in the first place, and then to get them to then take the next step to self-custody is almost impossible. And we've had this Coldcard disaster. Coldcard is one of the products that was pretty much recommended by everybody. Everyone said that's a great product, it's a great thing to use. And now, when was it, last week? I think it was, or maybe the week before. It's definitely not longer than 2 weeks, but it seems to have been about a week, 10 days, that this sort of came out. And from what I gather, the random number generator just either wasn't switched on or wasn't plugged in or wasn't working. And they had this weird fallback option to a shit random number generator, which essentially provided 8 bits of, it was an 8-bit password or something.
They got up to 40 bits of entropy, I think, is the maximum they achieved.
Sure. So, not hard to brute force with the help of some serious AI tools. And, I just said to somebody the other day, what if one of my friends actually freaking listened to me and went out and bought a Coldcard and lost all their savings? I've been hammering on my mates for ages to, grow some balls, man up, go in self-custody. And jeepers, this is shocking. It's really terrible. Anyway, I don't know, thoughts from your side, guys. Do you know anyone that's been hit by this? What's your perspective been over the last week?
Well, I think all three of us sitting here were Coldcard users. Alejandro, did you have a Coldcard?
No, it's too expensive.
Okay, so Herman and I definitely did. We spoke about this.
My stinginess saved me.
Yeah, they weren't expensive to set up.
I never paid for the Coldcard that I used. I just want to clarify that. I got it as a gift.
So I paid for a Coldcard Mark III, a fortune, imported it in because I listened to the Bitcoin influencers. But luckily, I'm only slightly autistic enough to have done the dice rolls and used the passphrase, and that's what saved me. Because my Coldcard was in the Goldilocks zone of having a shit stolen. So yeah, thankfully I did the dice rolls. But it's an absolute shit show. But I think the takeaway here is you can only use open source hardware that you can verify. Now the point is like everyone was, and this is the irony, Coldcard bags came with a stick on them saying don't trust, verify. Lol. and everyone just trusts Coldcard because they had this closed source module that no one could verify. But the beauty is that now with AI and AI code tools, every pleb can go and verify open source code bases. So you can take the code base for Seed Signer, the GitHub code base, or the code base for Jade, also on GitHub, and point your AI coding agent of choice at it and be like, verify this for me. Tell me what this does. What about the random number generator? How does it generate entropy? All that stuff. So you can do that yourself now. And now you can actually, the plebs can actually verify. And for me, this is like a pivotal moment of like the Gutenberg press, right? Where we no longer have to trust the priest class to interpret the word of God for us. Only the priest can speak Latin and they can only speak to God. And therefore they can tell the peasants what God really says and what he really means. And that's how they gain control over people. Us in the Bitcoin community, the priest class were the developers and we had to trust them and they could interpret the code and they told us what the code did. So the parallels are quite stark. But now the robots can help us and we can go and verify the code and see what it actually does. So any closed source hardware for me now is completely not a thing anymore. I'm not going to be using it. And luckily, I dodged a bullet because of what Andre said. I was looking to import Coldcards, and they told me I could only get a wholesale discount for 100 units. And I was like, well, I'm not ever going to sell 100 units in the country. So no, I'm not going to buy these. You guys are smoking crack. And they were pretty rude about the whole thing. So then I just didn't import Coldcards, and I just sold Jades and Seed Signers, which both are open source. So all of my clients who bought hardware devices from me are totally fine because Jade and Seed Signer actually have come out on top of this whole thing. I don't know if you guys have seen, but Seed Signer has had like a massive surge in popularity because it's a great device and it's open source, and and they were target number one of NVK from Coldcard. He was shitting all over them on their project, and then turns out he's got the cut project that's full of holes. So yeah, crazy times. But bottom line, I think, is like, don't trust influencers. This sounds so obvious, but like, I think we all got pulled in by the Bitcoin OG influencers who were like, Coldcard good.
It's so sad, Ricky. Especially because Coldcard was the top level, the most expensive one, the one that you got if you want to splurge, the one that everyone like trusts. If someone has a Coldcard, it shows that they're like serious. Now that's the one that got fucked. And the second thing is, if you're a Bitcoin influencer, I mean, maybe it's a little bit different the last year and a half, but from 2017 to 2024. If you're an influencer, there isn't a lot of sponsors. If you have a newsletter or you want someone else to sponsor you, there's no one in the Bitcoin community that would do that except, hardware providers like them. They were like the main source of sponsorships for influencers and people in the Bitcoin community who are looking to somehow monetize whatever following they have. And a Coldcard is the top echelon, in the top echelon of those sponsorships, and a lot of people have been recommending it. So the influence going down from the top level to the plebs is that whole structure has been kind of devastated. I mean, when I heard that news, I think we're still going to see the repercussions in the Bitcoin community for years. The amount of trust that has been broken. Luckily, I haven't recommended anything like that before, but for the last 10 years, if anyone had asked what hardware would you recommend, you would say something like Jade or Seed Signer or whatever, and then you say, oh, but if you really want to go, if you want to splurge, if you're going to serious, you can buy the Coldcard. That's kind of, and it's so sad that it had to be them.
Yeah, I fortunately never recommended anyone use the Coldcard. But I did use one myself, but it was just always too complicated and unnecessary for the average person. And the only people that I would recommend Coldcard to is people who can make the decision for themselves. Like if you have the technical chops to go and use a Coldcard, you don't need my recommendation on what to use. So the only thing I ever recommended
UX was so shit.
Yeah, no, it was way too complicated. And I mean, I tried to follow the technical discussion around this whole issue. But I think it should be a moment of reflection for the Bitcoin space, because similar to the whole like BIP 110 situation, I think the wise thing to do is to sit back and to reflect on the situation and to ask yourself, well, what can people learn from this? And I think from the Coldcard thing, I think, you know, the important lesson for me is that, you know, there's room for pragmatism. Like this whole idea that, you know, you got to have the perfect setup in all ways possible, rather than something that's more practical. I mean, look at what happened. You know, some people who had all their Bitcoin stolen did everything in a perfect way, except the one little small mistake they made was to trust the one company that told them they're better than everyone else. But they were air gapping, they were doing whatever it is that you're doing, but they didn't make any mistakes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying a hardware wallet and then trusting the device to generate your seed phrase for you. And I think it's just, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling a bit here, but at the end of the day, I think being pragmatic in the right situation is very important. And I don't think we can expect everybody to be hardcore self-custody Bitcoiners at the end of the day. And we should work on solutions that meet people where they're at. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny that, you know, my little Trezor hardware wallet that I got for free at Cape Town conference, you know, that was plugged into my computer, that wasn't necessarily air gapped, was safer all this time, you know, than this hardcore Coldcard that was too expensive for me to buy, but that I got as a gift and used because I thought, well, wow, what my lucky day! I got this amazing device. Let me use it. Yeah, just I mean, like one of the things I'm you know trying to advocate for very hard is this federation that we set up, because I think ultimately solutions like that is something that people should pay more attention to. It's not perfect in terms of self-custody, but I think there's more room for error. Like you don't rely so much on the individual to do everything perfectly, otherwise they get screwed. I mean, I just think, you know, everybody should draw their own conclusions, but it's a moment of reflection. It should be a moment of reflection that the most secure solution out there is the one that got people screwed. I mean, the irony there is just too much to just not learn something.
But it's not it wasn't the most secure solution out there. It was
but it was portrayed as such.
It was portrayed as the most secure solution out there.
And everybody believed it.
And everyone believed it because no one verified. Because you couldn't verify, because that component of it was closed source. And this is the irony of the whole thing, is that they took the Trezor code for the random number generator, which is open source, forked it, and then closed it, so no one could actually see what was going on, right?
Yeah.
This is my understanding of the situation.
That's the other big takeaway, I think, is that, and I think I mentioned this on the Signal group at some point, is that, you know, if the Mt. Gox incident taught us that it's not your keys, not your coins, then this thing is probably going to teach us that if it's not open source, stay away. You know, it should be non-negotiable that anything that gets used in Bitcoin has to be open source. Like you shouldn't even be allowed to consider making a club, because look what happens.
Exactly. You can't. If Epstein's taught us anything, is that people get compromised. Okay? And so, like, you can't trust anyone when there's so much at stake. Like, if you're a hardware manufacturer, the risk here is that they can rug everyone who uses their devices, you know, for the seed generation. And this is probably, you know, we might find out in a few months' time that this was actually a malevolent attack from the inside, and they knew about this. I'm not saying it's what happened, but like, I wouldn't be surprised now to find that out. But yeah, I think any serious self-custodial Bitcoiner now who has the technical chops to do this they're just going to vote with their money for open source solutions, and they're going to be, you know, only buying open source stuff from now on. Like, everyone's going to be so paranoid, and that's great, Bitcoin needs to be paranoid. Everyone's gonna be way more paranoid now. And so like, yes, it's gonna impact short-term, like onboarding people to self-custody. But what we're gonna see is solutions being developed where like you verify each component of a hardware wallet. So like we might now start seeing good UX to show like what are the critical components of a Bitcoin hardware wallet that you need to verify. So the random number generator, for example, your CPU, for example, your secure element if it uses one. Like there's all these components. And then you might see verification checks for each one, like each step as you like turning it on, for example. Like we see like the Coldcard had the green light to turn on. Oh, green light, that must be safe. That kind of thing. It obviously didn't have one on the random number generator. But you might see people now actually get a more in-depth technical understanding of what's going on. And that's going to obviously shrink the amount of people who do that seriously, but it's going to grow compared to where it was. Like how many people are verifying their software downloads on Sparrow, for example? Are you checking the keys? When you're downloading the latest instance, are you sure that that is actually the correct thing? You're doing the PGP keys, all that stuff. Way more people are going to start doing that because now everyone's like, well, clearly my sats are at risk if I don't do this stuff properly. And I've seen people complaining on Twitter about like, oh, you can't expect people to do 100 dice rolls. I'm like, okay, well, then they're going to lose their money. Like, you don't roll the dice, then roll the dice, on your savings. So that's kind of where we're
Just use the lyrics from your favorite song.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally random, yeah. So,
if it's open source software that they're using, you don't need to expect people to roll the dice. Like if it was open source software, somebody would have figured out a long time ago that there's this issue with the Coldcard, and so I think
especially now they will, because your agent, before you buy or before you build a seed signer, you're going to have your own agent go and point it at that code, and then maybe it's going to have put its findings onto another open source repo where everyone's things are going. Like that's where we're moving to now.
And before, if you ask people, like before, the mantra was always, "Are you taking self custody? Are you taking self custody?" It was just like this mantra running over and over. And now you're going to add one extra question to that. You're gonna ask, "Are you taking self custody? And is the thing that you're using open source?"
Don't get NVK'd.
No.
Don't get NVK'd. Yeah. But the interesting thing is like the two devices I mentioned, the seed sign and the Jade. You can go and look at how their entropy is created because the project's open source. So I had one of my AI bots go and look at that and tell me in plain English how it works, how they generate the entropy. And it's fascinating. Like how the seed signer does it. Like you can do dice rolls, or you have to generate your own entropy with the seed signer. You can't just have it generate the 12 words randomly. You have to do dice rolls, or it uses its camera of the seed signer to generate the entropy. So if you don't do dice rolls, it automatically uses the camera. And what it does is it looks like you're just taking a single photo. But what it's actually doing is it's filming a video, and when you press capture, it stops capturing video. So then it takes all those frames that you captured over like the 2 second or whatever period it's taken you to press stop. It needs 50 frames to do this. It then compares the light photons that have hit every single pixel in those frames over those 50 frames and how those photons vary per pixel. And that's the randomness, because it turns out that light hits randomly. It doesn't just come in a continuous stream. It's like photons coming down. And it checks the variance, even in a perfectly black room. It checks that variance between those 50 frames. And then that's how it derives the entropy, which is wild. But that's how they do it. That's on the seed signer. Obviously, you've got the dice. You can do the 100 dice rolls or 50 for 12 words. On the Jade, it takes randomness from various elements in the device, like your battery state. What percentage battery do you have? What is the time taken between pressing buttons? What's your CPU activity or chip activity? It has like all the 8 different points that it pulls info from and creates entropy from that. And that's how they choose to do it. But the point is, they're both open source. And then it does the calculation, which is, you can see how the calc is done, and it gets to 128 bits of entropy, basically. And you can verify that, which is great. Like now cool, random number generation is done correctly on these devices. You get 128 bits of entropy. You can couple that with a passphrase that doesn't come from the word list. It's a passphrase that you create yourself with numbers and special characters and capitals. And it's over, 8 digits long. All of a sudden, it'll take 55 million years to brute force that, So then okay, this thing's secure. So I think that's kind of where it's going to have to go, not because we like it or not. Like, just people are going to have to be more paranoid and verify the stuff for themselves.
So I've been looking at this issue of dice rolls, and apparently there are a multitude of options available. It doesn't have to be the 100 dice rolls with the one dice. You can use multiple dice at a time. You can use a combination of dice and a coin. I see even on the Blockstream website, they've got a system there where they've got 3 dice. It's 2 18-sided dice and 1 8-sided dice, and you sort of throw those things around. So if anyone's like getting freaked out by 100 dice rolls, there are other options. In fact, we've got a Bitcoin meetup this evening, and I'm going to be certainly chatting about self-custody, how to secure it, and dice rolls. I did it over the weekend. My wife was trying to sleep, and she just said these freaking dice are bouncing all over the kitchen floor. She can hear this like ting, ting, ting with the dice going around. So I was unpopular for a while. But I've got my 3 sets of 12 seed words, and I'm going to be multi-sigging those using those addresses or that seed phrase in each multi-sig device, and off I go. So there are ways and that around it. I did want to quickly chat about the BIP 110 thing. Man, there was passion there of note. The build up to it, Oaks were getting properly excited, knickers in a proper twist, and everyone pointing and screaming and shouting. And then the event happened, and sort of one block popped up, and then another block popped up, and then it just kind of went quiet. I haven't seen what's happened since then, but just from the socials, it sounds like a little bit of a nothing burger, except for the fact that, some big names in the space are now rage quitting. So thoughts from you guys?
No, it's definitely not a nothing burger, dude. Like, there's a new airdrop coming. What are you talking about? Like, we're all gonna double our stack soon. It looks like it's on the 1st of September that we're getting a repeat of the 2017 airdrop. So if you know what you're doing, you'll soon own some Luke coins in addition to your Bitcoins. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, it looks pretty certain at this point that they are doing a proof of work change. And it's bizarre to read how they're going about that. And I think a lot of the BIP 110 supporters are going to jump ship because they were wanting to force Bitcoin to adopt certain changes. And I can sort of understand that. I have some sympathy for that. But the proof of work change thing is just like, that's just too far out, man. And then there's the really far out position where people are saying that no, it's Bitcoin that's hard forking. So yeah, it's not over, not by a long shot.
Yeah, I saw some interesting. I think the Bitcoin Knots Twitter page said something about people are now being advised to go to an insecure chain, and all this like reverse psychology stunt going through. And I mean, I personally have got no problem with someone saying, "Hey, I think there's a problem, and I suggest we fix it like this," and try and rally support and put it out there and see what happens. I mean, it's a free space. If that's the whole point of decentralized stuff, is it's hard to change for a reason. But if there's a good enough reason for it, and you can garner support, and people decide to go with it, that's how it's going to go. The fact that it failed, I think, is kind of a if it had changed or if it hadn't changed, would it have actually made any difference, really? Because Bitcoin would still continue to go. And I mean, it's like an attack vector on Bitcoin, and it came up and it sort of seems to have failed, or it's going to veer off in an absurd direction and then probably definitely fail. I mean, I don't know how someone's going to launch a new proof of work algorithm now and think they've got the security budget for it and a whole bunch of people will jump on. But I mean, I could be wrong. That could go off and become another Bitcoin Cash or something along those lines. But it's one more attempted change to the protocol, and many more of these will probably come along. So interesting to see it, and to see it in real time, because I missed the 2017 block wars thing. I think that was probably a bit more scary than this one. But anyway, that's what I think. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, 2017 was very scary because there was a real chance that, at some point, Bitcoin Cash Bitcoin Cash was half the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash at one point overtook Ethereum in market cap, and on the market cap ranking it was Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum, and it looked like it was going to overtake Bitcoin and actually become the dominant chain by market value, and that would have pushed things in a whole different direction. But this time it just seems very clear that it's kind of like a bit of a minority thing, especially after the proof of work change. Like I said, I can totally see why people would want to change, Bitcoin consensus to be less accommodating towards spam. It kind of makes sense that you don't want. Obviously, you don't want spam on the network, but the debate is on whether or not changing it was actually going to have an impact. But now that Luke is talking about a proof of work change, it's just really become like a fringe kind of thing. I suppose there's a marginal chance that whatever they call that chain becomes the dominant Bitcoin, but it seems very, very, very unlikely at this point in time. But it's kind of like this is what decentralization looks like. Like if it's a leaderless system and there's nobody to guide the whole ecosystem in a particular direction, human beings are tribal by nature, and so you can expect that at some point, every now and then, it's like the halving. Every 8 years you got to have like a serious splintering. It's impossible to keep people moving in the same direction if nobody's there to sort of herd them. If there's no shepherd herding herding this mass of people, then obviously eventually people are going to splinter off and move in different directions. So this is just how it goes. It'll probably happen again at some point, I suppose.
Ricky, what do you think if there's a split and they do a new a fork? How would I be able to access and sell that? Will I just get a new pop-up on my Luna account that says, congratulations, you now own X amount of Lukecoin, or how does it work?
Can you imagine having to work at Exchange and now you have to build in the support for this and handle all of that? And then people are going to just be offloading. And I suppose the Exchange will be cool, it's trading volume for them, but man, it's such a it's also tiresome, man. To be honest, people are going to get the airdrop. Most of them are going to sell it. It's going to have downward pressure on price because of that. I'm sorry that people are going to get impacted like this.
Mechanic is not selling his Luke coins, that's for sure.
Yeah, him and Luke are not selling the Luke coins, but I dare say, a lot of rats will be abandoning the ship. I don't want to call them rats. I'm nominally, I agree with the points that they raised, about spam. I agree with them on that. I agree with the issues around core, all of that stuff. I don't think this is the correct mechanism to do it, but I agree with the concerns they've got, surrounding BIP10. So nominally I was on the fence about the whole thing, but I don't think that going about it in a way that wasn't actually going to solve the problem, it didn't really work.
I've got a question just about this new idea of theirs. And if the BIP110 thing was a miner activated change, right? The miners had to agree to adopt the BIP110 protocol and mine blocks that aligned with BIP110. So if that didn't work, if they couldn't get the miners to do it there, how are they going to get miners to fork off on a hard fork and now mine on the other chain? So this kind of seemed it would be easier to convince miners to mine on this new BIP 110 than to convince them to go on a whole new chain. So I think if you failed at this small change, it's not going to be easier to do it at a big change level. Or am I misunderstanding this thing?
This was not miner activated, eh? They activated it without miner support. So I mean, they had a very low bar for activating the thing that they wanted to activate. I mean, they had like 2.3% signaling by miners at the point where the soft fork happened, and so it was activated at a certain block height regardless of what miners did. And the expectation from their side was that, and I'm not sure how the logic works here, but the expectation from their side was that miners have no reason not to mine on the BIP 110 chain, but they do have reason to not want to mine on the legacy chain. I don't quite understand that logic, but that was their reasoning. And so the reasoning was that as soon as they force this activation, miners will make the logical choice and switch over to the BIP 110 chain, even though they had very, very low miner signaling before the time. But leading up to it, I mean, it was anywhere between 0.5% and 2-point-something%. It never got much higher than that. And there's apparently still people mining on the dead BIP 110 chain, but there's just no way they're going to find any blocks anytime soon. It'll take them several years to get to the next difficulty adjustment at the current hash rate, and so a proof of work change is the only way that they can extend that chain. But how are they going to convince people to come and mine on that chain on the new proof of work algorithm? I don't know. I suppose people will do stuff to get, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, probably bad wording on my side about the miner activated part. Without the miners mining BIP 110 compliant blocks, it just wasn't going to go anywhere. So at some point, the miners did actually have to do something. Without that happening, it wasn't going to even take off. Cool. Just one thing I had noted, just to change topics real quick, is Bitcoin strategic Bitcoin reserve companies seem to be suffering in the bull run, and these oaks are like shutting down and closing at a rapid rate of knots. And even the King Kong in the room strategy in the last 2 months have actually sold more Bitcoin than what they've bought, and they've actually been buying dollars. It's the strangest thing. Saylor puts out this Sunday afternoon orange dot chart, which normally indicates a Bitcoin buy, and then on Monday they announced they've bought a whole bunch of treasuries. So I don't know if it's just the bear market has been too hard for these guys. But strategy seems to be doing something else completely different. What they started off saying they were going to do, what they're doing now is kind of interesting. What do you guys think about this change in direction here?
Stay humble, stack sats. Don't leverage your Bitcoin. You can learn.
I wrote an article about strategy for the Sound Money report last week. Actually did quite a lot of research on what's going on there currently. I think the problem is, one of the problems that I have with strategy is it's almost a full-time job just to keep up with all the shit that they're doing. It's impossible to figure out what the hell is going on there actually. And I had a look at their history. They used to all these companies, they use that what they call MNAV, which is the value of the company compared to the value of the amount of Bitcoin that they own. So if your MNAV is 1, and then it means the company is worth exactly the same as the amount of Bitcoin that you're owning, or that you have backing and the company. And strategy used to have MNAV of like 1.29 or 1.3 almost, which means that the public values the company more than the amount of Bitcoin that they own. And that strategy used to be sound because they had all the Bitcoin that they purchased when it was still cheap, and they have the ability to get the cheap credit, so they can basically borrow for free and just buy Bitcoin and just wait for it to go up. So everyone knows that the biggest problem with going on leverage is you have to pay the interest, and you will get margin called if the price goes down. But they've kind of there used to be an idea that that seller managed to find a way to eliminate that risk, and that's why they were trading above the at a value above the amount of Bitcoin that they owned. Now, even them. The reason also is because they're in the US. They can borrow for cheap. They're listed, so they don't pay a lot of interest. All the companies in other parts of the world, especially in South Africa, it doesn't make sense if you're borrowing against paying 10% interest and buying Bitcoin. Even if the price goes nowhere, you're still going to be bankrupt within a year or two because you have to pay 10% of everything that you borrowed. But anyway, they're down to an MNAV of 1 now. So the market doesn't value strategy more than the amount of Bitcoin that they own. And that kind of shows you where we are at this stage is there isn't a lot of difference between owning strategy and owning your own Bitcoin. Except there's still a little bit of upside if they go back up to, it's a possibility that the market might value them more. And there's still a leverage bet on Bitcoin. If you believe Bitcoin will go to 200,000 within the next 3 years, you'll probably, if you buy strategy at this stage instead of buying Bitcoin, you're probably going to do better. So it's interesting. It's an interesting space. So I still believe that strategy will probably perform very well. I see them. With the calculations that I made, I think they're going to be like $1,400 for a share within 2 years if Bitcoin goes to like 180 or 200,000. So it still looks good. The other companies, they came in too late. I mean, most of them were founded and started while Bitcoin was between 60 and 120,000, and now Bitcoin is down and they're in the red. They have to still pay the interest, and it's just a matter of time before they get margin called, or if Bitcoin doesn't go up quickly enough, they're going to have to keep on paying interest while they're in the red. So it doesn't look good for the other companies.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. I appreciate your input there because I haven't looked into them too deeply, but it's been interesting. I mean, I really enjoyed. Michael Saylor did a series with Robert Breedlove on the What is Money show. In fact, I think it was the interview that kicked off the What is Money podcast, those 9 episodes or 14 episodes or whatever it was that they did. And I mean, super smart guy, like really fascinating to listen to, obviously intelligent. He seemed to find a way to make Bitcoin available to those corporate structures that weren't able to go and buy it themselves, because Bitcoin being a sort of an unknown as far as traditional finance goes. But he's a listed company, so you could go buy his shares and you can get access to Bitcoin for your company that way. I think that was quite a clever ploy. But as far as individuals go, I was always curious as to why people were rushing out and buying this. When I was living in the US for a couple of years, I mean, a lot of Bitcoiners were running around buying strategy. It just seemed weird to me because you're buying this thing based on the value of the underlying Bitcoin. So why don't you just go buy the underlying Bitcoin yourself and self-custody it? So it's just interesting to see. And I think basically it's a greed issue. It's a bit of hype about it. The number go up. Everyone's running to throw money at it, get on board, make money, which seemed to be a bit, it was confusing for people that I knew or know that are staunch Bitcoiners, but yet chasing the number go up. Just a bit weird. Anyway,
on that topic, I just want to add something there that maybe I can't explain what Michael Saylor's doing. I don't have a clue what he's doing. I mean, I know he's buying Bitcoin and he's asking Coinbase to hold on to it on his behalf. So who knows whether or not he is actually buying Bitcoin, because I mean it's Coinbase, right? This is like a slightly separate point, but you gotta take a moment and sort of just appreciate the irony of this super hardcore cyber hornet, a Bitcoin maximalist dude keeping his Bitcoin with an exchange that's run by one of the worst shitcoiners that we have in the space. Like, just take a moment and reflect on that. Like, he's supposed to be the super hardcore Bitcoiner that's got this cult-like following, and all these Bitcoin is in an exchange account with Coinbase, who is degenerate shitcoiners. So anyway, so that's kind of besides the point. That to take one moment to reflect on that, and then but apart from that, I'm sure he's very intelligent and very clever, and I know that he's obviously doing something quite interesting in the world of financial engineering. And I'm not going to criticize that because I don't have the intelligence to even understand what he's doing. But here's something that I do understand, and that you can also take a moment to appreciate. You know, when you go to one of these one of these bigger conferences where Michael Saylor likes to go and speak, you know, the Las Vegas conference or the Prague conference, two of the biggest conferences in the world, where I was recently at, and you walk into these venues and they are massive. I mean, it's just like thousands of chairs packed out, and the stage is sometimes so far away when you first walk in the back of the venue that they've got to have like they got massive screens next to the stage, but then they got additional screens halfway between the stage and the back of the venue. And when you first walk in there, you kind of like, this is kind of strange because it's all empty. It's just completely empty, and you'd have the most interesting people on stage talking about some really, really interesting things, and the place is empty, you know. And then when Michael Saylor comes, you understand why the venue is that big, because all of a sudden, for one talk and one talk only, 5,000 people squeeze into that venue, and every seat is filled. And as soon as he's done talking, they all file out, and that's the only time that venue fills up to capacity. And if you look at what he says on stage and you compare it to some of the other things that other people are talking about, his presentation is by no means the most interesting. Whether your interest is technology, whether your interest is regulation, whether your interest is whatever, pick your topic. There are talks at that conference that are more interesting than what Michael Saylor is saying, and yet he draws a crowd that is 20 times, 30 times, 50 times bigger than the closest comparable thing at that conference. And that's interesting. And it's kind of like this feature of human nature where we tend to conglomerate around these cult-like leaders. And it's almost like we have to have that. We cannot live without these things. And Bitcoiners are just people at the end of the day. So we also have these cult-like figures. And that to me maybe explains a little bit of why people went out and rushed into buying whatever it is that he's building. I'm sure there's a certain percentage of people that went out and bought it because it really is interesting and they see some future value in it that I don't understand. I 100% believe that. But there's definitely a considerable number of people who went out and bought it just because he's this cult-like leader who has built this following that it's hard to explain exactly why he has this following, but he's that dude, you know. And you always have these dudes at some point or another, and every group has to have that dude. You know, we love to talk about decentralization and Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, human nature has this need for a leader that people see themselves in, and Michael Saylor is just, for whatever reason, might be one of those people, you know. It is really fascinating to see. I mean, Prague was just the most recent example, and it was just fascinating to see that, you know, there was, I think the most crowded talk after Michael Saylor was Dr. Jack Cruz, and even he did not fill up a third of the venue. And when Michael Saylor came in, it was packed. So fascinating. I would go to one of those conferences just to witness that, because that alone is fascinating to see.
Yeah, powerful personalities, hey? And it sort of swings back a little bit to, you know, some of the stuff we've spoken about on today's episode. For example, I mean, I've never met NVK, but I've heard him on a lot of podcasts. And he has that same kind of super confident, like knows exactly what he's doing. Not a shadow of a doubt. Someone described those sort of personalities quite well, and they said they're often wrong, but they're never in doubt. And it's that kind of personality, just bombastic, knows his stuff. And people like that can say ridiculous things, and you believe it because they say it with such passion and such conviction.
That's the guy that 500 years ago would be standing at the head of the army and leading them into a charge that might seem impossible and that anybody else would have failed to motivate them to rush into. But because you have this super strong personality leading the charge, they actually do beat the odds, and end up on top. And I think you put it well. It's just a very, very strong personality. It's not necessarily the content of what they're saying, but it has to do with what's behind that. This very, very strong personality, which actually can also fuck up. I mean, it can lead to pretty disastrous consequences too. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially if we look at the Coldcard thing. And, funny enough, Bitcoin Mechanic is another guy. I love listening to that guy talk because he has this like downplayed sincerity mixed with good intelligence as well, and sort of unemotional in a sense, doesn't get excited and carried away, but he speaks with a lot of passion. And he was probably the loudest voice that I heard that was pro BIP 110. Obviously, he works for Ocean and he's involved in that whole thing as well. But this whole thing has just been a reminder. You talk about Michael Saylor, the NVK, the Bitcoin Mechanic, these sort of guys that can, that their words carry power. When they speak, people listen, rightly or wrongly. And it's just interesting that all three have popped up on this podcast, and two of them for a pretty bad reason, and maybe the third will be for a bad reason as well. Who knows what will happen to strategy? But anyway, guys, we are wrapping up on time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Closing thoughts before we duck off. Handre, I'll hand over to you.
I don't know. I think Herman put people like that in a very good light now to say that 500 years ago they would have led a charge and have people do things that they thought were impossible. A lot of these guys are just idiots who are continually wrong, still sound confident. Not saying any of the three that we're talking about falls into that class, but definitely, being humble about what you know and your predictions of the future is a very important characteristic that I look for in someone before I listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I think I'll echo what Andre said. I mean, if you have a personality like that and it's combined with good substance, you have a potentially very, very a powerful combination. But if you have a personality like that with little to no substance behind it, that's when you end up in big trouble. But I mean, yeah, and I agree with you. Mechanic is a great orator. He's got a great way of speaking. He's got a way of speaking that kind of pulls you in and tells the story in a very convincing way, which is why he managed to have such a large audience. But I think at the end of the day, I think it takes a lot of effort to remain humble about what you do know and what you don't know. And ultimately, I think it serves a person well in the long term. Just keep in mind that you might have your opinions, but we all have our blind spots.
Yeah, awesome. I couldn't agree more. And just a final thought from my side is, that's the definition of a cult leader. Some guy that has just got immense sway over a large group of people who will blindly follow them, often quite harmful, quite detrimental. You hear stories of people, they write books on escaping from cults. It's a powerful force. And Herman, I think you mentioned it, people are tribalistic, and a cause is powerful. A cause will get people to gather around a cause. If you have a good cause, man, you can attract a lot of people. So a reminder once again to just take a step back, think for yourself, think carefully about things, and don't just. It's easy to follow the personalities. They're very attractive and very magnetic, and they will pull you in.
Yeah.
Okay, boys, it's been awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your time as always. Have a lucky day, and hopefully the weather warms up. The sun is shining in Pretoria. I don't know about where you guys are, but like a weekend ahead, I think.
Yeah, bro. When the weather warms up for summer, you must make a plan to come down here and learn some surfing, dude.
I'll get the longest board you've got, and then I'll keep the small one for photos, big one for surfing.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Lucky, man. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye.